What up, everybody? Meowth here. I hope you guys are all enjoying this post-nerf metagame. I've been playing a ton in the past 2 days around top 100 legend. And so what I wanted to do was to kind of record a short video answering a really common question that I've gotten in the past couple days of like, what's the best deck in the metagame? What are the best decks? And while it's way too early to tell you like what tier everything is and in like a specific order, I just wanted to share what I think are the current like top 15 decks in the metagame, and these are decks that anybody can hit legend with if you play them well, or you can climb legend with. I think it all just comes down to what your personal preferences are, what cards you own, and what you're seeing in your local metagame. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this, and if you guys do, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. It's free and supports me a lot. Alright, so let's dive on into some of these lists. So the first list I want to share with you is Reno Priest. I think this is the list that once people stop experimenting and having fun in this, kind of volatile metagame, I think this is the deck that will settle on being the best deck in the format. Obviously, this is my opinion, but I think this is by far and away one of the strongest decks we've seen so far, and most of it stays fairly similar to what it was pre-Darkglare. I think the only big change is that you're seeing no Shadow Word Ruins or Wave of Apathy, since Darkglare is not something that needs to be dealt with. Those early boards of Giants, not a thing anymore. And so now you get to fit in a little bit of extra greed. And so what I've got is Madame Lazul for the Mirror. And this allows you just more consistency. So like if you're not hitting your combo cards, you can at least try to steal them from your opponent. And then Mindrender Lucia, because I feel like combo's going to rise in popularity to attempt to counter Reno Priest, and this just gives you a little bit of interaction, a way to disrupt your opponents alongside a Dirty Rat and a Lotheb. And so it gives you kind of this very strong way to fight against aggro, or to fight against combo rather, as well as being super stable against aggro, which is kind of what makes Reno Priest so powerful. And then of course you've got Polkelt. This is kind of the reason that the Dragon builds have completely fallen off the face of the earth, because this card and its ability to make your combo super consistent is just insane, right? So yeah, this is Reno Priest. Fairly similar build, but a very, very strong deck, and probably going to be the deck to beat in the new metagame. And so one of the most consistent ways to beat Reno Priest are combo decks that are able to kill the Priest before turn 8, turn 9. And one of the best decks of that is Quest Mage. I think Quest Mage is a big winner from this nerf to Darkglare, because Darkglare just absolutely demolished Quest Mage, and now Quest Mage has a little bit more breathing room. I think you'll see some of the new cards in Firebrand and Wand Thief give you a lot more game against other aggressive decks, which I think is good for Quest Mage. Like, that's what they want. I think obviously, yeah, Lucia hard counters this deck. So I say that in quotes because that's not exactly true with Lucia, but it's still a very strong deck. It's a very it's favored into Priest, it's just not auto win like it used to be. But yeah, Quest Mage is back for those of you that enjoy it. I'm not excited to see this again. And so while I think Quest Mage is better into Priest itself, Reno Quest Mage is a little bit worse into Reno Priest, but a little bit better into the rest of the field. Assuming that field is going to be playing some aggressive decks. And so essentially we're getting new pieces here, right? In the Wand Thief, we get Wand Maker, we get Firebrand. I've gone back to the Dragon package just for some additional card generation because the quest is at 8 now. But yeah, some pretty strong tools. I think Reno Quest Mage or Quest Mage are going to be very, very good decks, probably top tier, as ways to try to combat Priest. And the last combo deck I want to talk about is Malagos Druid. Malagos Druid's in this really weird spot because they're okay against aggro because you have Seeds, Double Plague, a ton of armor generation, and a ton of ramp. And that ton of ramp plus a win con that Lucia can't really disturb makes it pretty good against Priest. So like Maly Druid's the reason that Reno Priest are kind of like running rats and Lothebs as well, right? In addition to the Mirror. And again, Psych Melon is just like one of those cards like Polkelt, where like if you hit this card early in the game, your consistency at comboing off is just so insanely high. But yeah, Malagos Druid, nothing has changed. since the Dark Glare nerfs, this is the exact same 30 cards that I was running. But I think Malagos Druid, alongside Quest Mage, are probably the two combo decks that you're really excited to queue into Quest Mage, or to queue into Reno Priest to try to counter them. Alright, and then Odd Warrior and Dead Man's Hand Warrior kind of really increased in popularity thanks to Dark Glare Warlock. And while the power level of these decks are going to go down now that Dark Glare is nerfed, I think there's going to be plenty of aggro on the ladder that still warrants both of these decks seeing play. And so the reason I'm going to show you an Odd Warrior list and not a Dead Man's Warrior list is because I think they both fill the same niche as a control deck in the format. However, I think Odd Warrior is better at being, like, it's better against aggro. It's more consistent against aggro, whereas Dead Man's Hand, while it's less consistent against aggro, you actually have win conditions against other decks. So I think they both are fine. I personally don't play Dead Man's Hand Warrior, where I have played Odd Warrior, fairly recently. So I know how to build Odd Warrior. I don't really know how to build Dead Man's Hand. And so this is my Odd Warrior list. The only real change is you don't really need the Iron Heads anymore because you don't need the burst healing for the flurries. But you get to slot in Dr. Boom to give you some sort of like initiative against the other slow decks in the metagame. But yeah, this is Odd Warrior against Priest. You're really looking for those brand Colites are your best friends. But yeah, Odd Warrior, good to go. Very, very straightforward deck, very easy to play, I think, from like a micro decision standpoint, but still a very, very good deck in the metagame. All right, now let's talk aggressive decks. I think aggressive decks are still going to be very, very good in the metagame. I think aggressive decks are very, very good against Quest Mage and combo, and potentially high rolling Reno Priest. We'll see how popular it is. Yeah, Reno Priest is still the premier anti-aggro deck, but Kingsbane is still one of, if not the best aggressive deck in the metagame. The nerf to Secret Passage. So Secret Passage was absolutely bonkers at drawing 5. And so it's still pretty damn good when it sees 4. And so this is, again, the exact same 30 cards from Kingsbane. I think Secret Passage only seeing 4, while it is a nerf to this deck, I think this deck is still insanely strong, insanely consistent now with Secret Passage and Cutting Class. And I'm excited to see if this deck, can actually rise to tier 1 in popularity and how other decks kind of react to it. And the other rogue deck that's super popular is Odd Rogue. And so we talked about this with Corbett on our most recent podcast episode, but this is the build that we think, if you're trying to beat Priest with an aggressive deck, this is actually probably your best bet, because you get to run tech cards without too much of a detriment to your overall game plan. And so the big thing here is we are running Beneath the Grounds, 2 copies of them, to turn off the singleton effects from the Reno Priest. And you actually have a little bit more like refill and sustainability than previous Odd Rogue lists do. And so if you could turn off the singleton effects from the Reno Priest, and kind of outlast their board clears, which this deck actually is pretty damn good at doing, I think Odd Rogue is probably your best bet for the the aggro deck that has the best matchup into Reno Priest in the current early metagame. But yeah, Odd Rogue, super excited to see that. Yeah, and so Discard Warlock kind of fell completely off the face of the earth when Dark Glare Warlock became a thing. And it's kind of, people forget that this deck was actually tier 1 before before Scholomance Academy in the Ashes of Outland metagame. And so what I have here is kind of my take on a hybrid between the two and kind of squeezing the Dark Glare back in. And so instead of going all in on Dark Glare, what we're doing essentially is Dark Glare is our second and third copy of Canritheds, right? So Canrithed gets out Malkalzar, Zimp, and Voidwalkers and Flame Imps cheap, whereas Dark Glare gets out your Cobalt Librarians and Flame Imps for cheap. And so it's just like it's a second and third Canrithed, and Canrithed is pretty bonkers in this deck. And we have a mini Raised Dead Flesh Giant package. So there's a little bit of anti-synergy, right? Because the matrons, they can discard the Flesh Giants, but I think that's a risk that you're willing to take, because Flesh Giants and Raised Dead are just so insanely strong that it's probably worth it. It's very easy to discount them as well. So I'm excited to see how this performs, because it, like I said again, was one of the best decks in the format before, and I'm really excited to see how it performs, kind of moving forward. All right, and so now I have 2 versions of Q-Block I want to share with you. So this one is focused on the newly buffed Arcwitch Willow, basically serving as yet another Void Caller or Skull effect. the buff to 8 mana is actually pretty damn huge, because it actually means that you're cheating out these demons before, like, I don't want to pay 9 mana for a Void Lord, right? Otherwise, it's just like hardcaster from my hand. And so while I'm not 100% certain or sold on Willow being really good in the deck, she's a hell of a lot better than she was at 9 mana. And like, I played a little bit of this, and I think the game plan with Willow is if you want to play Willow, you have to go all in on demons, right? So if you look at the deck list, I'm running both Void Callers, Demons, Dreadlords, Mal'Ganis, and Void Lords. So I'm running 9 demons with the double sense. So we're all in on the demons. A little bit less on the anti-aggro, but it's a little bit something that I'm okay with. And then something to take note is there's no Canrathed and there's no Expired Merchant here. And that's because if you're playing Willow, you're all in on tempo, right? You're all in on being able to refill the board against Priest, which is the whole point of like the Doom Guards. Expired Merchant and Canrathed are useless against Reno Priest. And so I think if you want to beat Reno Priest, this is probably the version of Q Block that you're going to want to play. However, if you don't care about Priest, right, and you just want to be just better into stuff like Jade Druids or Reno Mages, or other slower decks in the format, this is the list that I would use. And the main difference being here is that we're running double Raised Dead and an Expired Merchant, which just gives you much more longevity, right, compared to the tempo that Willow provides. I think both versions are good. Currently, I've been preferring the Willow version. Maybe that's just because I have her in Golden and she recently got buffed and I want to play her. But I think both versions of Q Block are good. They're a lot better now that Quest Mage is back in the metagame. They both struggle into Priest, right? Willow's a little bit better into Priest, but they both do still struggle. But yeah, Q Block, one of my favorite archetypes, is back, definitely for sure. And there's going to be some testing to do between both of them to see which one is like the best, you know? And then Evenlock. I think Evenlock really struggled because it sucked into Darkglare. And I think what we're going to see now is this kind of rise in aggressive strategies and this rise of Quest Mage again. And Evenlock does very, very well into both of those things. It sucks, absolutely sucks into Priest, more than Q Block, honestly. But this is something that I was playing at the beginning of Scholomance Academy. 6 Giants plus Faceless Shamblers plus the Raised Deads. You are playing 8-8 after 8-8 after 8-8, turn after turn after turn, fairly, I should say, compared to what Darkglare was doing. And it's kind of nutty the amount of pressure that you can put on against Quest Mage, who are like AFKing for 2 or 3 turns and then trying to have this big swing turn. And if you develop 3 or 4 giant minions, then their giant swing turn doesn't really do anything. And so I've had a lot of success. I'm also running a small dragon package with Nether Breaths, the Crimson Hotheads, and Zeraku to go alongside the Twilight Drake. And this just gives you a little bit of burst healing, burst sustain against stuff like Rogue, Kingsbane Rogue. I've queued into a lot of. And so I'm excited for this deck. I love Evenlock. Handlock was one of my favorite decks of all time. It's what kind of got me into loving Warlock. I'm excited to play this. I'm not sure. I'm definitely sure that this is not the best build of the deck. This is just what I've been running. I know that there's people that have been wanting to experiment with Darkglare. I just couldn't really figure out the best ways to fit it in. And I know Artificers, Moarg Artificers, for even more healing off the Nether Breast is something that you might want to look into. Not sure what you're replacing. But Evenlock, it's been really, really good for me. I went 6-1 with the list. I think it's pretty damn good. All right, next up we've got Jade Druid. Again, this is something that was rising in popularity because it had an okay matchup into Darkglare and Priest. Jade Druid has a pretty good matchup into Priest. Like, the ability to put on pressure while gaining a crap ton of armor is good against Priest. I will say, if Q Block, rises super high in popularity, this is not really a deck you want to play, because even with double seeds, you suck against Q Block. You just can't beat Q Block. And so I will say that Jade Druid does do pretty well against a lot of the other aggressive archetypes in the metagame as well, though. I think the Guardian Animals package in Jade Druid is insane and something that should have been touched and experimented with earlier. I really like this current build of Jade Druid. If you do want to fit in a Poison Seeds or a second Ritualist, just go down to 1 idol. But other than that, I think the list is pretty tight, and I'm really, excited. It did pretty well for me, and the Guardian Animals definitely performed super well. You do have like 10 patches. You never want to draw any of the minions in your deck, which is kind of weird. You definitely want to be drawing all your spells. But when this works, it works. Jade Druid still very, 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 very strong deck. And then, of course, I had to revisit, what was probably my favorite deck in the Scholomance Academy metagame for the first month, Pocket Galaxy Mage. The way to look at this deck is it is Reno Mage with a mini Turtle Mage package, right? With the Turtolin Pilgrim and the Potion of Illusion. But I look at it as Reno Mage first, and then Turtle Mage combos kind of like as a secondary win con. So you want to make sure that you're good against aggressive decks, which this deck does pretty damn well. I put in a little bit more tempo oriented tools, since we no longer have to worry about going all in to clear Darkglare, and so we get to run stuff like Wand Thief. You get to run Valet, right? I'm running Cold Light Oracle as just like another way to better your priest matchups. And then we get Jandice back as just this really strong tempo tool, especially when you're getting it for 1 mana. So I know a lot of people are going to be asking about Grizzle Wizard and Finley, and I'm like, I just don't think you need it in this deck because they're so bad everywhere else. We're already favored against Priest. I don't really want to put cards in my deck that increase my matchup percentage by just a little bit at the detriment of a lot of my other matchups in the metagame. Personal opinion, so I'm not running it. Feel free to if you're sold on them. But yeah, LPG Mage I think is a really cool deck, and still has a ton of refinement to be had. I think there's a lot to be done with this deck. There's got to be something tier 1 out there somewhere, and so I'm excited to see what it is. But yeah, Reno Mage, I had a lot of fun with it, and it was really strong prior to the nerfs, and it just had its worst matchup nerf. So I think Reno Mage is actually up there for potentially one of the sleeper tier 1 decks that people aren't really talking about yet. All right, and then I had to have a Paladin deck in here just to try to be fair to a lot of the decks. I think Libra Paladin, not necessarily pure Paladin, because I'm not running pure, but I think Libra Paladin is just a deck that's just been slept on for a long time, but a lot of people. I think this deck has insane tempo and is insanely strong, like against aggressive archetypes. Just like you absolutely wreck aggressive decks, like you absolutely wreck rogue, and the ability to just put on insane amounts of pressure, right, and refill, okay, with double 7 drops in Liadrin and Lanessa. I actually have an insanely good win rate against Priest just because you constantly pressure them, and you pressure their life total so that they can't Spawn of Shadows kill you. And so obviously if you whiff on your 7 drops against Priest, that's where you're going to end up losing, but I've had a lot of success with this deck. The Penflingers with the Libra Wisdoms are really good, underrated. I think it's pretty popular in Standard, but it's definitely something that's really good in Wild as well. But yeah, this is my Libra Paladin list. It's not too difficult to play, right? It is a fairly straightforward Paladin deck, but I think it's a very, very good deck, and something that we should be talking about and seeing a lot more of on ladder. And last but not least, we've got some Big Shaman. So I think Big Shaman really struggled with Darkglare Warlock being the top deck, just because with Cult Neophytes and Lotheb, you just couldn't deal with their boards like very well at all. And so now that Darkglare is kind of gone from the metagame, I think Big Shaman comes back as one of the premier anti-aggressive decks, anti-Quest Mage decks in the format. I personally like Fist of Raden in my deck just to kind of provide more threats while you're waiting for your big stuff to Eureka out or in such as Call Out. And it just allows you to fight tempo super hard, right? If you're using a spell against an aggressive deck while also generating multiple 3-drops, like off of the Serpent Shrine Portal, it's really, really good. I'm a big fan of Big Shaman in the metagame, but I'm not sure, like, I am 99.9% certain it's garbage into Priest, so if we see a ton of Priest, probably not the best, but if we're seeing a ton of aggro in the metagame, or a ton of Inner Fire Priest, the decks that Shaman does really well against, I wouldn't be surprised to see Big Shaman as a strong contender at the top of the metagame. But yeah, guys, so that's 15 decks. I know that there's others out there that I didn't touch on. I know Inner Fire Priest has been seeing a lot of success. I've been queuing into some aggro druids that have been pretty good, and of course we touched a little bit on Dead Man's Hand, but I just wanted to talk about 15 lists that I've been messing around with and wanting to play, or that I think are going to be really good in the metagame. And so I hope you guys enjoyed. You can find all the codes for these lists down in the description below, but if you guys, most of these, you know, I'm going to be refining, so if you want updated codes and lists, make sure you guys join the Discord. There's deck list channels so that you can find updated deck lists for this new metagame. That link to the link to the Discord is in the description as well. And I will be uploading, you know, video gameplay if you guys want to see these decks in action over here on this YouTube channel. So if you guys want notifications of when that gameplay goes live, make sure you guys drop a subscription. It's free and it supports me a lot. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this like super informal, casual video, just kind of talking through my list and, you know, what I'm running and why. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.